Hello everyone, this is Dr. Tina Mims, and for our retailing course, and quite frankly, for marketing metrics and for any role you might have in professional marketing, these are some simple add and subtract, multiply, divide kind of things that you need to know. So I'm going to walk you through how to calculate the information needed for the strategic profit model. Okay? It has to have some very basic elements that we've learned probably since the 10th grade about. Okay? So we all know what sales are. That's basically the generated revenue, right? On an income statement, it could be called revenue, it could be called sales. In retailing, we're tracking sales. Okay? And once we have sales, most of us in retail, we have returns. So we would always take returns from our sales. And if you'll look here at the image in our text, Exhibit 7.3, I'm following along now this path. The target income statement for fiscal year February 1st, 2020, that's how you read that, fiscal year February 1st, 2020, is net sales, okay? Sales less returns give you net sales, 77,130, okay? Then we're going to subtract cost of goods it took us to make those sales. So simply put, I'm inputting the data and then creating in my spreadsheet, look, an equal, what's in B6, that's net sales, less what's in B7. Now listen, don't look at this as math. Just look at it as typing. Excel's doing the math for us. All we have to do is tell it where stuff is and what to do with it by typing. It's very, very simple. So we'll hit enter, okay? And if our math is right, net sales less cost of goods sold is gross margin 22,266. Oh, that's what the textbook has, 22,266. Then we've got operating expenses. That's called sales, general and administrative expenses, or SG&A. Those are expenses. We're losing money. We're spending it on sales, people, on pencils, things like that. Administrative expenses, let's call it administrative expenses to make it easy. So that means we've got an expense, 18,590. So I've typed that in, see, 18590. I've also formatted this whole column by coming up here and hitting that dollar sign, boom, and then I made sure I removed any of the zeros. Decrease decimal. That gets rid of all those zeros. We don't need any change in this. There's no change in this, meaning no cents, C-E-N-T-S. So I've made this red, and what we're going to do now is we're going to take gross margin and subtract any of our operating expenses and get our operating profit. Okay, so here we go again. Double click so you can see B8 minus B11. This is all you have to do to set up your spreadsheet. Okay, I highly recommend this so that you can get comfortable with it for the midterm exam. Yes. Okay. All right. So we hit enter and our solution is $3,676. Yep, that's what we've got over here in the book. Okay. Now we've got another expense, which is going to be taxes. We're going to have to pay some taxes. I don't like the way they wrote this here. It says less other income, less other expenses such as interest or taxes. I believe that's a typo on their part. So let's say less taxes of $1,377. Okay. So now we have to get operating profit before interest and taxes. Well, we need to subtract taxes. so we can get the net profit margin. This is also sometimes referred to as net margin, okay? So operating profit is in B12 minus B14. Sounds like we're playing bingo. Hit enter, and boom, we get $2,299 for net profit margin. Yay! That's really, really good. Okay. All right. So now we got to talk about the ratios because the strategic profit model uses ratios. Okay. So, well, gross margin as a percent of net sales is what this should say because net sales is what they've given us here. So we'll start with recognizing that net sales is where we're starting from, 100%. That's always going to be what we're dividing by, okay? So if we want gross margin as a percent of net sales, gross margin as a percent of net sales, then we're going to take the gross margin and divide it by net sales, B8 divided by B6. Now you can all type this out, right? 11 is B8 divided by B6 and hit enter. And we get 28.87%. Now here again, I've taken my entire column here and I've come up here and hit the percentage row, percentage thing, right? And I've added 2 decimals. That's what I did here to make it look like their numbers, okay? All right, so now gross margin as a percent of net sales is telling us a positive outcome. That's why I've left it in black. However, the next thing we're going to calculate is operating expenses as a percent of net sales. That's a negative outcome. That's a negative outcome. Why? Because expenses are things we pay for, right? Okay, so to get that, we're going to simply do the same thing again. We're going to take, and we hit the equal sign. We're going to take our operating expenses and divide it by net sales. Remember that 100% line is where we're always starting. Okay, and boom, 24.10%. Looky there. We're tracking right with them. Okay. Okay, so let's continue on. So we've got 24.10%. That's out of pocket, so it's negative. So I made that in red here as a little side note. Okay. So operating profit as a percent of net sales, B12 divided by B6. Okay. And then our last thing is the net profit margin as a percentage of sales. Okay. So we've got our net profit margin in dollars divided by our net sales in dollars so that we can get a percent. Now, sometimes people use this word as percentages, as ratios, and sometimes as proportions. Yep, you might hear proportions sometimes, especially if you're in a sociology class, okay? All right, so let's see if we can do the same thing here using the Walmart income statement. Okay, I'm going to clear. I'm going to clear the contents. Okay, and we're going to start off with, let's say, $600,000 in total sales, and I'm going to have $80,074 in returns. So that means I'm going to have less returns is $519,926 in net sales. Okay, so there we go so far. Now this is a number that's given to us, so I have to plug that in. $394,605. And then I'm going to do my math, which is net sales minus cost of goods sold equals gross margin. And since my percentages are still there, my calculation's still over here, $125,321. Looky there. The spreadsheet's working. I highly recommend you create a spreadsheet for yourself. Okay, let's go on down to less operating expenses. Let's just call all that our administrative expenses over here. 108. This is another plug number, meaning it's a given number. Okay, looky here, 20%, 20.92%. Operating expenses as a percent of net sales, 20.92%. There it is, turning out just fine. So now we can do some more math. Actually, we can let Excel do the math. I'm going to tell it to look in B8. I'm going to say subtract whatever's in B11 and then give me the answer. $16,530. Operating profit margin, $16,530. Wow. And the operating profit as a percent of net sales is 3.18%. Operating profit as a percent of net sales is 3.18%. Piece of cake. All right. Then we're going to have some taxes to take out of there. I've labeled these more clearly than the book, and that's a given number, $5,687. It's red because it's out of our pocket. And then I just need to tell Excel where to look for stuff. Equal B12 minus B14, enter. And I get $10,843 as our net profit margin, aka net margin. Net profit margin in dollars, $10,843. Looky there. And our net profit margin as a percent of net sales is 2.09%. Okay, now why do I need this? I need this again for, see if I can find it here, this strategic profit model. You see, we need the net profit margin and we need to divide it by net sales. Okay, now that's not in this right here, okay? The net profit margin divided by net sales. Yes, it is in there, okay? That's net profit margin in a percentage. Okay, so let me tell you where that number. Net profit margin as a percentage. That's what this is. 2.09%. Because we got net profit margin as a percent of sales. Net profit divided by net sales. That's exactly what that picture is showing us. Okay? Net profit divided by net sales. Then we've got net sales divided by total assets. Ooh, but remember, assets are not on an income statement. Assets are where? Assets are on a balance sheet. So we'll have to look at what a balance sheet is to get to an asset turnover. I'll finish that on another video. Okay? I hope you find this very helpful for your success in your career and also on any quiz or test.